Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be with all of you this morning, both in person and virtually. My name is Diane Dowgiert. My pronouns are she and hers, and I'm serving as your student minister this year. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. Whoever you are, whatever road has led you here this morning, and whatever medium you are using to join us for worship today, know that you are welcome here. If you're joining us via Zoom, I invite you to turn on your cameras, put Zoom in gallery mode, and wave hello to each other and to all of the folks in the sanctuary. We have the screen behind us here so we can see all of you and folks in the sanctuary. If you would like to wave to our Zoom friends, the camera is behind you. So turn around and give a big hello. I'd like to extend a special welcome to anyone this morning who is visiting us for the first time. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you may find it here. You can find helpful resources and more information about our congregation by visiting our website at firstuunash.org. And I invite you to say hi to me after the service. If you want to get more information about the congregation, I'll be hanging around out there in the social hall. You can also reach out to me via email at studentmin, M-I-N, @thefund.org for more information about the congregation. So a few announcements and housekeeping notes before we begin worship this morning. First, thanks so much to all of you for wearing masks and making every effort to social distance. This is really an opportunity for us to care for ourselves and each other by practicing what it means to be part of a covenantal community. So I invite you all to use clear communication and practice enthusiastic consent before you go in for a hug or scoot in close to someone in the pew. The speakers will be removing their mask to speak from the pulpit this morning, but remaining masked at other times in the sanctuary. For those of you who are joining us in person today, a reminder from last week that the restrooms on this level, which were formerly the women's restrooms, are now the men's restrooms, and the men's restroom, which is kind of up in the social hall, is now the women's restroom. They are labeled that way, but if you were used to that from kind of the before times, just know that that's a change, and there is also an all-gender restroom in the social hall. We will also be sharing joys and concerns this morning, but just to let you all know that portion of the service will not be broadcast via Facebook or YouTube, just in order to kind of preserve a sense of intimacy as we share these tender moments of our lives with one another. And finally, I invite you to share your farewell wishes with Jay Tiefenbraun, our Director of Music Ministries, live and in person in the social hall from 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturday, December 18th. We will gather to celebrate Jay's seen and unseen contributions to our worship and congregation through her musical direction, choral direction, singing, music arrangements, and especially her IT and recording work during COVID. All congregational COVID protocols, including masking, signing in for contact tracing, vaccinations, and physical distancing, will be followed at that celebration. On Sunday mornings, we bring our whole selves, our many names for the divine, and our diverse spiritual paths and join together in worship. We are so glad you joined us today. May this time together refresh our spirits and renew our commitment to justice.
Good morning. My name is Jay Tiefenbraun, and my pronouns are she, her, and I serve as your Director of Music Ministries. Our opening song is by Unitarian Universalist singer-songwriter Jim Scott, and the lyrics will appear on your screen. And I invite you to rise up in body or in spirit as you are so moved. Rise up whether you are joining us in person today in the sanctuary or on Zoom or the internets, and join in the singing, Gather the Spirit. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our sacred fires will kindle one flame, witness the mystery of this hour, our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion, once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once. Gather the Spirit growing in all. Gather the Spirit growing in all. Drawn by the moon, and fed by the sun. Winter to spring, spring and summer to fall. The chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Diane Dowgiert, Developmental Lead Minister here at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. My pronouns are she and her. I call us to worship today with words that were written by Erica Hewitt. Holy One, you knit me together in my mother's womb. This is the voice of Psalm 139. I was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Let us remember and celebrate this morning that each of our bodies was woven together in the depths of mystery, cells multiplying, tissue taking form, organs taking up their function, all under the silky cover of skin. Let us gather in reverence for the gift of these bodies, whatever their ages, their shapes, their abilities, and may we know them to be channels of the world coming alive through us. These bodies, these blessings bring the world to life through seeing, taste, hearing, scent, and touch. May we bring to our intricately woven bodies a sense of sacred caretaking. In doing so, let us also be grateful for the embrace of the holy, the presence that creates and sustains life, the mystery that knit together each of our bodies, and the force of love that celebrates our desires.
We light our chalice this morning with words from Eric A. Heller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit, touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life.
Good morning. I am Marguerite Mills, your Director of Lifespan Religious Education. My pronouns are she and her. The story this morning is an adaptation of a story from the PBS Kids program called Arthur. And an interesting note before I start the story is that when this was broadcast, which was less than 2 years ago, Alabama Public Television would not air it. They said that they provided quality programming for 50 years and that parents trusted them. And although they strongly encouraged parents to watch television with their children and talk about it afterwards, they also believed that because the parents trusted them, they had an obligation. And they also were concerned that children who are younger than the quote target audience might also watch. And so while many of the parents would not have heard about the content, whether they agree with it or not, they felt it would be a violation of trust to broadcast the episode. To this day, they never have. The title is Mr. Ratburn and the Special Someone. The original story was written by Peter Hirsch and the storyboard by Alan Jeffrey. So Mr. Ratburn is in the classroom. He's waiting for the kids to come in and class to start. And while he's doing that, he's talking on the phone. And he says, Patty, I'm afraid I can't keep talking right now. I've got to, kids are starting to come in. Oh, flower arrangements. Well, I was kind of thinking of sunflowers. No. Well, I guess they're not particularly elegant. Oh, okay. White flowers of some kind. That'll be more elegant. Thanks, Patty. You're great. I'll talk to you later. So now all the kids have arrived, and Mr. Ratburn says, good morning, everyone. Did you enjoy the reading I gave you for last night? And they said, yes, of course. Oh, they should make a movie. Well, excellent. Then you're all ready for this pop quiz, aren't you? It'll be a breeze. Ugh, they groan a bit. And then one of them, Buster, he says, are flowers on the quiz too? Oh, no. That was something else entirely. Oh, really? Yeah, they're for a wedding. Whose wedding? Well, Mr. Ratburn said, mine. Well, everyone was surprised. My goodness, getting married. Now, later on, a few of them, Arthur and some of his friends, they were at the Sugar Bowl diner, and they were talking, and Muffy said, teachers don't get married. That's just wrong. Arthur said, well, I guess they do have some sort of life outside of the classroom. Nope, they don't. They don't. And Buster's imagining what it would be like. And he says, no. When they go home, they sharpen their pencils, they eat some kale, and they dream up homework assignments. And he has this images in his mind. Mr. Ratburn is writing a note, and he says, a 4,000 word essay on the color gray. Well, Buster says, they don't even sleep. They just go down into low power mode and watch documentaries. Well, that's ridiculous. But who on earth would want to marry Mr. Ratburn? Well, they are still here in the diner, and the door opens, and in walks Mr. Ratburn. And he says, how about this table, Patty? Patty. She had blonde hair, very tall. In the original cartoon, she was voiced by Jane Lynch. And She's wearing a pink blazer and black trousers. And she says, no, 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 that one has better light. And so they go and they sit down while the kids hide under their table. And she talks to the server, Patty does, and she says, green tea steeped for precisely 3.5 minutes and unbuttered white toast. Mr. Ratburn says, just coffee, please. Patty asks him, what did you think of the caterer we met? He says, I loved the salmon mousse. Patty says, really? I wouldn't feed that to my cat, and I don't even like cats. Well, not everything has to be exactly perfect, Mr. Ratburn says. Patty says, Nigel, do you really, really want just an A- wedding? I expect more from you. So come on, we need to get this right. You're just too soft, Nigel, too soft. We need to toughen you up, and you just leave everything to Patty. Well, she turns now to the server and she says, I said 3.5 minutes. This was 2 3/4, returning her tea. Okay, in the next scene now, the kids are in the treehouse and Francine says, we need ideas, come on. If Mr. Ratburn marries Patty, our lives are toast. Yeah, unbuttered toast. And it'll get sent back. Well, she did seem kind of harsh, Arthur says, but we don't really know her. Francine says, that's not the point. She said she was going to toughen Mr. Ratburn up. And Arthur says, okay, so how do we stop this wedding? Well, Muffy says, what if Mr. Ratburn was the exact opposite of what Patty was looking for? Someone like this. And she shows them her phone. And there is a photo of Mr. Ratburn in love beads and long hair and a headband and a flowered shirt and bell bottoms and sandals. Buster's like, oh my gosh, where did you find that? Muffy says, I made it with Hippie Morph. It's an app I downloaded. It makes everyone look like a hippie. And then she went about adding some animation to that. So the next scene is back in the diner and Patty is sitting there. Francine, dressed like an undercover detective, approaches him. And she whispers, he's not who you think he is. And she puts a little thumb drive on the table and walks out. Well, Patty is interested and she puts the thumb drive into her laptop and she starts watching it. And the kids are spying and they're looking and they're saying, is she mad? Is she upset? Is she crying? Is she yelling? No, she was laughing up a storm because there was Mr. Ratburn dressed like a hippie playing his bongos. So, okay, that one doesn't work. Arthur says, what's plan B? So next, Arthur and Francine are walking along Main Street and they walk into Patrick's chocolate shop. Patrick is there and he welcomes them in. He's very, very nice. He talks to them, asks them how they are, what are they looking for. He offers them a sample of something that's just yummy. It's dark chocolate and some hazelnut cream and just a little touch of orange zest. And they say, we'll take that. So, okay. Are you going to, is it for you? I can give you a glass of milk and some napkins, or I can wrap it up for you. And they ask him to wrap it up that it's a gift. Oh, who's it a gift for? Our teacher and the librarian. We're hoping that maybe they could become a couple. Well, Patrick says, I really do believe in chocolate, but I'm not entirely sure that it could exactly, make people fall in love. Well, they take it anyway, and they head back out the door. Now, back in class, Buster says, "Hey, Mr. Ratman, there's a special exhibit at the library. Want to go?" That Miss Turner, she makes the best exhibits. And Francine says, "Yep, I bet there's chocolate too." Well, Mr. Ratburn says he's just got too much going on with preparing for the wedding. He doesn't have time for that, but he does ask them to return a library book. Well, Francine reads the cover of that book. It's love poems by Pablo Neruda. And she says, "Ooh, that gives me an idea." So at the library, Francine whispers, "Where's Mr. Ratburn?" He couldn't make it, but Muffy improvised. Muffy walks up to Miss Turner and hands her the book with a note inside and tells her that Mr. Ratburn asked her to deliver it personally. Now, when Miss Turner looks at the note, she sees that it's a poem, not a particularly good poem, and words misspelled all over the place. Library was library. And so she looks over at the kids standing by the exhibit where, sure enough, there were chocolates. And she takes out her red pencil and circles all the errors and returns the note with a different book. Poetry writing for beginners. Well, now the kids don't know what to do next. What's plan C? Well, they didn't really know. But one of them said, "You know what? I saw this thing on TV where you can object to a wedding. And if you do, I think it can't go on. So we should object." And they write it out together and they practice. And they each take a line. And it goes something like, "We care for our teacher and he deserves to be happy. To be with someone who's nice and kind and fun to be with. Someone who likes him just the way he is. For all these reasons, we object to this union." Okay, so they're ready. And they've all been invited to the wedding. And when they show up, Patty is there greeting everyone. Well, what's going on? Doesn't the bride usually wait for her big entrance? But they all come in, they sit down, and then Patty stands up in front of everyone. And they're still and even more confused. And they look really hesitant. And Patty says, all of you, Nigel's third grade class, he considers you to be family too. If you have something to say, please do say it." Well, they couldn't find their tongue. They didn't know what to say. And finally, Arthur said, well, we really think the flowers are beautiful." And Patty says, "Oh, thank you. Nothing but the best for my little brother." Well, now they're even more confused. Who's he marrying? And they look back at the entrance and they see Mr. Ratburn beginning to walk down the aisle. And on his arm is Patrick from Patrick's Chocolate Shop. And as they come down the aisle, Patrick looks over to Francine and Arthur and winks. And Arthur leans over to Francine and he whispers, "Well, maybe chocolate does make people fall in love after all." And so ends the story.
You may know that we share every Sunday's collection with an organization whose work outside our walls aligns with our values. Our Share the Plate partner for the month of December is Nashville Diaper Connection. 1 in 3 families in Nashville struggle to afford diapers. You can buy candy with food stamps, but diapers are classified with cigarettes and alcohol as disallowed purchases. Nashville Diaper Connection strives to ensure that every baby in Davidson County has enough diapers to stay clean, dry, and healthy. In this time of COVID, we will not be passing offering bowls through the congregation. Instead, there are offering bowls located at the back of the sanctuary where you can place your offering at any time during the service. As always, you can also make your offering online. The offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. As always, your gifts, like your presence among us, are received with gratitude.
Thank you, Holling. Wow. And from that, I get to try to move us into a time of quiet and contemplation. And so it is that I invite you to take a breath. Take a breath and settle more deeply into your body, your whole and holy body. Perhaps closing your eyes, softening your gaze. And as you reflect on your past week, the recent moments and hours and days, sometimes deeply felt joys or sorrows or concerns may arise. And as those thoughts arise, you may wish to come forward and drop a water a stone into the water in silence and honor what is in your heart. And if you are here in person and would like your joy or sorrow or concern to be shared, you may find a little yellow slip in the pew in front of you, and you can write out your joy or concern as legibly as possible. And when you come forward, if you've written out that yellow slip, you can hand it to Sandy Wallach, who is our lay minister for today. And if you are here via Zoom, you can use the online form that has been posted in the chat. You can use that if you'd like your joy or concern to be shared with the congregation. You'll notice that the form is a little bit different than what we've been used before, but if you fill it out, it will be emailed to Lisa Pasto Crosby, who is our Zoom lay minister for the day, and she will be sharing those joys and concerns with us just a little bit later. May this time be a comfort and a joy, a balm of healing for all. Spirit of love and Spirit of life, O God of our beautiful and broken world, we gather in your presence and in the presence of each other, awestruck at the powerful forces of nature, heartsick at the death and destruction in the wake of raging storms. Even in this time, may our hearts remain open to feeling all that we feel, knowing that we are held in an infinite embrace of love. Help us to find the hope and courage to keep moving through our days with a will toward healing and restoration. Grant that all of those who are suffering illness be restored to health and wholeness, that those who are grieving be comforted, that those who are celebrating be a beacon of joy, and that in the stillness of this moment, we all may be lifted and carried by the grace of caring for one another. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen.
I invite you excuse me, to join in number 352, Find a Stillness. It's a beautiful Transylvanian hymn tune with lyrics based on that Transylvanian hymn by Carl Seberg. Find a Stillness. Find a stillness, hold a stillness, love.
So before I begin today, I have a disclaimer. Even though the topic of today's sermon is human sexuality, and it probably would not pass muster with the Alabama's public radio station, the sermon is rated G. It's rated G because it's suitable for people of all ages. As Unitarian Universalists, we have been teaching human sexuality in our churches for nearly 50 years, starting first with high schoolers and then expanding to include the entire lifespan. We affirm that our whole lives are good gifts, including our sexuality. What began as AYS, or About Your Sexuality, and I'm just curious, anybody here go through the AYS program? Well, that expanded, and now is Our Whole Lives, Lifespan Sexuality Education, which we fondly refer to around here as OWL. So, curious again, who all has gone through the OWL program, either as a participant or as a facilitator? Thank you, thank you, thank you, facilitators and participants. A conservative estimate is that through the years, we have reached over 250,000 people with our sexuality education programs that promote healthy sexuality by offering age-appropriate, biologically accurate, faith-based information and resources to people across the lifespan, from kindergarten to older adulthood, and every age in between. And over the years, more than 7,000 people have been trained as OWL facilitators, a program that was developed jointly by the Unitarian Universalist Association and the United Church of Christ. And it's considered by sexuality educators to be the gold standard. We've had to put that program on hiatus during our time of COVID, but Marguerite and your Religious Education Committee are working diligently to find a way to bring that program back alive. When I meet adults who grew up in Unitarian Universalism, they almost always tell me that the most memorable, most impactful, and most important part of their UU faith formation journey was participation in either AYS or OWL. And you saw the hands. If you doubt that's true, you can check in with folks. To pull back the veil of mystery and secrecy that our wider culture creates around matters of human sexuality, to pull back the veil is often life-changing, sometimes life-saving, and always life-affirming. Today's topic is actually the weaving together of two themes. One is radical hospitality, chosen as the theme for this entire church year as we begin to emerge from the isolation that we've experienced during the pandemic and begin to come together as the changed people we are. Radical hospitality is about welcoming the stranger, welcoming the person who is unknown to us, the person who might be different from us. In many ways, we are strangers to each other, even those of you who have known each other for years. Strangers because we've all been changed. None of us is exactly the same as we were 2 years ago, which is always true, but more profoundly now. Radical hospitality is also about welcoming the parts of ourselves that we may be estranged from, the parts of ourselves that we would rather ignore or maybe push into the shadows. We've been looking at different aspects of human existence and the many ways that we are different from each other. So far this year, this church year, we've considered differences of class, race, ethnicity, and gender, and how it is that we make welcoming spaces for those differences in our congregation and in our lives. This month is about sexuality, about being radically hospitable to people with differing sexualities, differing sexual identities, and differing sexual orientations. You may know, and you may not, Unitarian Universalists have been on the forefront of inclusion of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, non-binary, intersex, and asexual. We've been on the forefront of full inclusion of these folks into religious life, not to change or convert or suppress, but to welcome and affirm these ways of being as good, healthy, and holy, part of the wondrous diversity that makes up our human family. When other religious groups were rejecting anyone who was other than straight and cisgender, our congregations were places where people from the LGBT community could find a safe haven to be open about who they are. In my short time here as your minister, probably the most common story that I've heard, both from members of the congregation and folks out in the broader community, is I've heard stories of the women's dances that were held here and how risky that was, even to the point of police driving through the parking lot and taking down license numbers. This was brave and courageous ministry. And when I first started attending Pride events as a straight ally representing the organization I worked for at the time, the Unitarian Universalists were the only church with a booth, the only church that marched with their banner in the parade. Thankfully, that situation has changed over time, and more churches and synagogues have become open, affirming, and welcoming of differences in sexual identity and sexual orientation. Unitarian Universalists have been ordaining openly gay and lesbian clergy since the 1970s, and the first openly transgender minister was ordained in 1988. We began performing services of union for same-gender couples as early as 1950 and have been on the forefront of the fight for marriage equality ever since. 7 of the 14 plaintiffs who brought civil suit against the state of Massachusetts in 2004, which you may recall was the case that turned the tide for marriage equality, 7 of those 14 plaintiffs identified as Unitarian Universalists, and they had the full backing of their congregations and the UUA. While there is much for us to celebrate as Unitarian Universalists for our efforts to bring about more welcome and inclusion of the LGBTQIA community, it was a hard journey to get to where we are today. Prior to the 1970s, Ministers in our congregations who were discovered to be gay were fired. And today, our UU congregations still have closeted or non-disclosure lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender queer ministers and members. People who are bisexual, queer, and or transgender are more likely to be closeted or non-disclosure in our congregations than those who are gay or lesbian. We still have much to learn about how to be truly welcoming of sexual diversity, and much still to learn about the complicated and nuanced realities of human sexuality. The theme that we're exploring in the month of December is mystery. The holidays and holy days of winter invite us to ponder the mysteries of birth and the creation of life itself. We ponder questions of where we came from and what it means to be alive, questions which are intricately tied to sexuality. Early Christian thinkers attempted to solve this mystery, the mystery of human sexuality, by imagining human life dualistically, influenced by thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, and the general culture of Hellenism. They separated body and soul, seeing the soul as eternal and of God, and the body as being sinful, its needs, urges, and desires as something to be overcome in service of the soul's salvation. We reject those ideas. The Reverend Gretchen Haley, in her essay titled "A Liberal Theology of Sexuality," says this: when we talk about a liberal theology and ethic of sexuality, we need to start in our vulnerable, needy bodies, in real life, in the struggle to navigate our embodied neediness with others, in an embrace of the still possible mutual wholeness and transformation. She says any theology of sex that doesn't start with the body fails to address those implicit and injuring messages that many of us and our culture carry. The cultural messages that have been handed down to us about our bodies have created a sense of mystery and even secrecy about sexuality, which in turn fosters shame. Together, secrecy and shame work to continue a culture where news of non-consensual sexual intimacy and the harm it causes, it's in the news every day. And it's harm that is disproportionately experienced by women and children. The Me Too movement is still alive. We don't hear as much about it today, but the Me Too movement is evidence of how prevalent sexual abuse and violence is in our culture. So, teaching human sexuality in church is countercultural, a corrective, a healing balm for body and soul. We teach a holistic view of sexuality, one that helps us all, beginning with our very small children to our oldest adults. It helps us all to make informed choices about our sexual health and behavior. We demystify sexuality and pull back the veil of secrecy and shame with factual, age-appropriate information in a way that clarifies values, and builds the skills for healthy, intimate relationships, relationships that are based in mutual consent. One of the gifts of this stage of the pandemic is that we get to practice consent on a daily basis. We have to ask, how close is too close? Masked or unmasked? Vaccinated or unvaccinated? Sharing intimate details of our lives with each other. We ask if it is okay to offer a handshake or a hug, because we can't assume to know what feels safe or risky for someone else. We don't know that without asking. We have to ask these days, even our closest friends. Consent builds trust, and trust is essential for intimacy, for union, for connection with ourselves, with each other, with the earth, and with all of life. For me, this is the essence of our sexuality: intimacy and mutuality, connecting to share love and pleasure together responsibly. Ultimately, radical hospitality is about welcoming bodies, whatever shape or size, whatever sexual identity or orientation, welcoming our whole and holy selves. Much as we seek to demystify human sexuality, there is so much that still remains a mystery. How is it that we become the people that we are? Why are we attracted to the people we are attracted to? How is it that we love who we love? A great and holy mystery. In this season, when we celebrate the embodiment of the divine in human flesh, when we celebrate the wonders and mysteries of life, when we open our hearts to give and receive gifts of comfort and compassion, hope and joy, love and peace, may we welcome the stranger among us and know them as one of our own. May it be so. May we make it so through our living. Amen, and blessed be.
Our closing song is Joyce Poley's When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. I invite you to rise up in body or in spirit and join in the singing. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, when we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear in a holy place. When we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Please join me in the words for the Chalice Extinguishing, written by Elizabeth Sell Jones. If you don't know them, they're located in the back of your hymnal, number 456. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
The words of the benediction were written by Mark Mosher DeWolf, who says, "With what benediction shall I leave you? This. In your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into every moment. May you live at peace with your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your every day." This service has ended. May our service to the world continue renewed. Go in peace, go in love.